We're live now.
That's where you ask those kind of questions.
So we're all talking about all the questions not cyber related.
Right.
Chris, I have plenty of story for you guys. Are we live yet?
Yeah, I just want like funny story.
Later.
Does that have something to do with me?
No, it has something to do with public speaking and audiences asking ridiculous questions.
Oh, okay. We don't do that. You a teacher.
Welcome.
Hello, folks. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to keep more folks in. I'm Robert Walker, the Director of Community Initiatives. I'm excited to have an intimate chat with you all today. We are streaming live on YouTube as well, so hello to our online partners. We're going to have this all available for viewing for later on. So if you like what you heard today, you can go online and catch some more. So I'm excited to introduce our panelists today. It's all about cybersecurity. As you know, it's Cybersecurity Awareness Month here at UAT. Yesterday, we had a virtual open house where our professors talked to all of our students online. And so today, we are going to talk here in person and dive into some deep dive topics on cybersecurity. We're going to open it up at the end. If you have any questions, near or far, throw them out. We'll come to you, ask your questions to each of our panelists. I'll introduce them. So, all the way down there, we have Dr. Bryant Pagodi. He is our UAT professor, PhD, CISSP, PMP, a Navy veteran where he served as the Director of International Affairs for Egypt and Qatar. So, next to him, we have Professor Aaron Rodriguez, UAT Professor of Cybersecurity, an 11-year Air Force veteran himself with extensive knowledge in executing technology and security solutions. Give it up for Professor. And next to him, the amazing Dara Gibson, who is the president of InfraGard Arizona, an FBI-affiliated 501c3 organization. Her team champions the development of robust industry connections, fosters business growth, and ensures the security of critical infrastructure here in Arizona. And joining us as well, we have some student panelists here. We have Kyle Sutty, who is a game design student who's going to give his perspective on cyber from that angle, and network security student Christopher Alsey. So I'm excited to chat today. We have some topics that we're going to discuss. So we're first going to touch on the cybersecurity landscape. As you all know, a lot of things are happening with cybersecurity, local, domestic, abroad. So we're going to do our best to hit on those topics. But first, I want to direct this to you, Professor Pagodi. What are the most pressing cybersecurity threats that organizations and individuals face today, in your opinion?
All right. So first, I want to take a moment to thank everybody for being present. And thank you, Robert, for coordinating this. I think it's incredibly valuable. Like the season of giving, I think it's important we recognize that cyber hygiene is something that we need to be focused on all the time, not necessarily just October. And to correct the record, Kyle is a graduate of bachelor's degree in game design. Is that accurate? Currently a graduate student in the cybersecurity program.
There you go, Kyle. Congratulations.
Yeah. So as I tell all of our game students, you're all coming back to cyber.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah. All right. So. Sorry, what was the question?
Most pressing threats, cybersecurity threats, organizations and individuals face today.
Okay, so let's talk about let's talk about cyber in general, right? So I think many people recognize that cyber is networking, IT, but I think it's also important to recognize that cyber is much more broad than that. I mean, taking a look at scoping out, so SATCOM, satellite communications, GPS, telephone networks, both traditional and cellular, Bluetooth. So the domain of cyber is really all digital devices interconnected, communicating, and transferring data and files. So to that point, the principles of cybersecurity are really the same, regardless of whether we're talking individually or organizations, large or small. Right. The specifics, though, are obviously going to be dependent based on the particular sector the size of your organization and the particular resources that you have available and the vulnerabilities that represents. We've seen over the course of the last few years, ransomware is obviously something that's been up and rising. And I know that we have, so I think we're gonna spend a few minutes here during this panel to talk about AI.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to recognize in the forefront that AI is really speeding things up in terms of offensive cyber and exploitation. And that's probably where many organizations and individuals alike are gonna be focused in terms of cybersecurity.
Excellent. Professor Rodriguez?
Absolutely, I was gonna tap on the AI again. The way that it works now is that it's ingesting so much information from so many places. It's starting to see what people are looking for. It's starting to understand the methods that we're using for applying those security controls into our network. So when it can outthink us and it's faster than us, it's kind of a problem, right? So that's kind of where I see our biggest problems coming, is that we are using it so much in different places. Again, it ties into firewalls, it ties into smart switches now. Every one of these devices are outward facing to something usually. And all of that is ingesting more information, it's feeding it back into these systems, and it's learning from what we're doing. So at some point, someone's gonna be able to start, engineering their own version of AI that allows them to just ask these very simple questions or create the scripts that they want. And that's gonna be a huge problem for us, because again, it's thinking faster than us, it's writing faster than us. The changes that we put in place is gonna be able to identify them and then re-attack it in another method. So I think really that's where we're gonna be facing the biggest challenges in the next couple of years.
Well, and the threat actors are actually already using your AI for their nefarious acts, right? They're already taking what you and I use to make unicorn kitty cats on, pictures, right? They're actually using it to be very nefarious and going in and exfiltrating that data and manipulating it to do different components of it. And that's where businesses have a hard time or need to focus on the identity. Who's actually accessing it, creating that privilege access management program, utilizing it. And I mean, we're here in a technology school, so I hope y'all have MFA installed, right? Because that is critical component, because that's where the threat actors at least have to pause and say, oh, wait, they've taken one step to block me. And so that's where we also have to understand that that's where the ransomware can be put through. And also creating those segmented networks, because if you have a flat network, it's easy for the threat actors to just go across and do whatever they want through the network. So having that many segmented branches can, again, make the threat actors say, oh wait, I have to pause. Oh wait, I only got this much data instead of.
Excellent point, Dr. Chris.
For me personally, it's kind of interesting that y'all brought it towards the idea of AI, because I've taken AI classes at this school, and I'm moving closer towards taking the deep learning, machine learning portion of AI at the school. And currently, to my knowledge, I am, based off of what Professor Rodriguez said, I personally have my own AI on my own PC, where I can do these things without having the restrictions of things like ChatGPT or Claude or any of those other AIs that restricts people from, hey, how do I do penetration? How do I do penetration testing and do this specific type of test? The AI is going to tell you, no, I can't tell you how to do that. My AI personally, since it's private and I don't have the same restrictions as these other AIs, I can personally ask my AI, hey, how do I hack this person? My AI will teach me, it will learn everything it can. And it's just based off of these large language models, which there's thousands of large language models that you can just openly download, put on your computer, and now your AI knows this. If I just find a bunch of cyber AI large language models, put that onto my computer, ask my AI how to do this, it can tell me how to do all these malicious things in seconds, which is kind of scary.
It's a lot scary.
Yeah, AI and ethics, that is, two of the hot button issues that we definitely want to, get to and deep dive into that. So I'm glad we're talking about it now. Donna stroked on something that, comes up next. You talked about, the unique challenges that businesses face. You're looking at, military, education, law enforcement. Each sector kind of has a unique way that they have to address these issues. Can you elaborate more on that?
So the underlying issue though still is the securing of data,
Yes.
securing of the network. So it doesn't matter whether you're talking about your satellite up in 10,000 feet above the air or a university with education. It's depending on how you're designing your network to be protected and making sure that people, the users of that network, are practicing cyber hygiene. And that's why this month is designed, right? To really help people become educated in the practices that are safe and secure. Identifying that phishing email. You know, one of the key components that I educate my clients on is, you know, when you have that that email that comes through, they're a lot more clean now. They're a lot more educated. They're a lot clearer. They can actually make it really look like Netflix is trying to change your credentials, right? But at the same time, if you take that second to pause, you're teaching and understanding the critical components of the necessity to just pause and ask the right questions and investigate and have that inquiry method of knowing how to keep yourself protected. So again, education has the need to protect, you know, in a lower education, children's identification. If a kindergartner's ID gets stolen from a school, you may not know for 13 years the devastation that threat actor caused that particular person. Whereas in a university setting, the data can be exfiltrated, and now the older you get, you can't get credit cards. You can't get the information because it's single filed and taken and exfiltrated and manipulated. So it no longer does what it was supposed to do in the first place.
That's important.
If I could pick up on that thread. So we recently saw in the news, T-Mobile settling with the FCC $31.5 million. And Will and I, we're working on a business underwater basket weaving, right? If I'm looking at the news and I'm saying $31.5 million is the bar for cybersecurity and a data breach, then where do I start as a small business? And I think the answer to that is effective risk management, right? Conducting a risk analysis to, again, determine what your resources are available, what your vulnerabilities are, conducting a rack and stack, prioritizing those vulnerabilities based on potential risk. And then from that, start developing layers of security, like we talked about, security and defense.
And how much risk you're willing to take.
Right. And Robert, you brought up the point in regards to like different sectors, different businesses, and ultimately what it comes down to is as a group of leaders, right, determining what your risk appetite is, and from that, making decisions based on what your resources are available and what you're able to commit.
I'll say it really helps when you can take all of that information, sort of applying it to your business continuity plans. All of these different areas you have to understand. They have an effect on your business, so doing your business impact analysis along with that, taking all of that information, knowing the material, knowing the resources, knowing the manpower, where are you going to pick up and drop if this incident happens, who are you going to call, that list of that chain of contacts that you need to have in your playbooks and everything, just to make sure that you have step-by-step instructions. And one of the biggest areas that I see that a lot of companies fail at is identifying the roles for which and responsibilities for each individual person. Once it hits a certain point, it's not a individual's job anymore. It just says, you know, call the fire department. You know, if you just say everybody in this room, call the fire department, we don't know who's actually going to do it, or if you're actually going to do it. So at that point, if you would have identified, okay, first row, like, you know, seat 1 has to do that call. Now we can identify that specific role, whoever was there, that's your job, right? Same thing when we're starting to work on these plans is you say, okay, IT manager, in this particular event, you're head, you're responsible, this is your checklist, these are the steps you need to accomplish from this point forward. Making sure that everybody has that flow of information that's able to do their jobs, right? That's why we're all here. You've got to make sure everybody can do their jobs. And that's kind of the next big piece that as you're establishing your company, that you really have to think about, right? What is that step? What are you going to do in the event of this? And we were just talking about it, having cybersecurity insurance now. It's a big deal. Just learned that they have like 500 questions. So it's a lot of fun, right? So we do a lot of things.
Just another thing to add to our insurance list,
Yeah.
you know, cyber, car, home, insurance, everything. Okay. Yeah, and Kyle, I actually want to come to you. You have a unique background in that you originally came from game design, so you have a double lens on this.
Yeah.
How do you view in your sector, and what made you choose cybersecurity to go down?
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, just wanting to gain the knowledge of how when I'm building games, I want to eventually build my own games and publish them. Just the different ways that they could be affected and attacked or stolen and put up on pirate websites and stuff like that. I just want to have that knowledge so that exactly whatever project I work on, whatever thing I put out into the world, it can be safely protected from whatever vectors of attacks that are happening these days. It can come from anywhere. You're mentioning military. My dad was career Navy. We grew up all over the world, and he was frequently on deployment and gone for long periods of time, and we wouldn't have the knowledge of where exactly he was and what they were doing, which is of course crucially important to protect that information while on deployment. He was just telling me this story. This just happened 3 weeks ago. A naval officer on a deployment on a ship from San Diego was caught. They had brought onto the ship a Starlink satellite setup. And in their quarters, they were going on Netflix, checking their Instagram, hosting movie nights on the ship. Yeah, of course, they were, and she was caught lying to her officers. Oh, no, I have no network going on here. And yeah, they were eventually found and they were court-martialed and demoted. It's definitely an intense risk, and coming from all these places with the technology enabling these things literally globally. It can be a risk coming from anywhere you never even know it's there nowadays.
Yeah. Gotta shield ourselves from the risks we see and the risks that we don't.
We don't, exactly, that's the tough part.
Definitely not good on that naval boat.
Dude, I couldn't believe, my dad said that him and his retired buddies were just face palming at that one.
And for anybody who doesn't know, the reason that's a problem is because now they can track the boat.
Yeah,
They know where the boat's at,
exactly.
so
Pinpoint
that's kind of a
location,
problem.
Anyone.
Yeah, and one television show could be the difference between national
Exactly.
security or not.
Just checking your Instagram feed,
Yeah.
unbelievable, yeah.
And she found the tower, like in the middle of nowhere. What
Yeah.
tower is she?
Exactly. Yeah, well, with the Starlink global, satellites, you can connect almost anywhere.
The Leo.
Totally.
Wow. So we talked about the cyber threat landscape. Let's talk a little bit more about, cyber defense and approaches. What did you recommend for each of you as far as cyber defense, penetration testing, security assessments? We talked about having a designated role for each and every individual, but also, the explanation of technical and non-technical terms so that you can identify phishing and say, oh, that is not Netflix. Why would my Netflix email my work? So I'm gonna start with you, Dara. Like, what are some, things that we can do to up our cyber defense and some practical strategies you recommend?
So right now, my focus in the industry is cyber insurance. So that's where I'm gonna take a lot of my parameters from for the first part of my answer. So, as we mentioned, cyber insurance applications now have up to 550 questions that are applicable to your cyber maturity level. So if you're a small business or you're just beginning to start to launch your business, and you're like, dude, I just opened a bank account. Well, now you've got to actually disclose that and make sure you know how much is on that. And then you also have to think, okay, did my bank have credentials? Do I have MFA on my bank?
Yeah.
How about my business bank? How about my phone? How about my this? How about like that? And it all extrapolates because your insurance questionnaire is now like, well, you have to make sure that you've done all of this and validated it to make sure that you have cyber maturity. So we're really looking at your levels of, do you have an endpoint detection and response unit? Starting in 2025, insurance carriers are going to start mandating managed detection and response. So it's no longer just, Fred working 8 to 5. They want to make sure that Fred is working 8 to 5, somebody else is working 5 to 8, to make sure it's covered 24/7 or following the sun, because that's where the threat actors are coming in, Saturday at 2 a.m. And then I get those phone calls to say, hey, it's Mother's Day, guess what the threat actor did overnight? Today's my day off. Nope, it is not, right? So, in an incident response capability, you're not off, right? And then in regards to the critical infrastructures of where InfraGuard comes into play is really looking at all 16 critical infrastructures and saying, you know what, we have a nuclear plant in Arizona. How is that being protected? Where's their security measures? Have they also focused on physical security? It's no longer just cyber and physical. You have to make sure that it is converging because of the fact there are so many components that, if the nuclear weapon goes off, Well, guess what? We're gonna have some physical damage, right? Not only to the building, but to the people. And we have to make sure that the physical of the building is protected, because that's where your security measures of your network can also be deployed. So really understanding the necessity of the measures across the ecosystem.
Professor?
All right, absolutely. So, the first thing I'd like to kind of bring up, and I've talked to all my students about, is establishing life cycles for equipment, policies, any kind of security control you have to put in place. Nothing should be able to stand forever, right? Everything
That
should
is a
be.
question on the application.
Yeah. So nothing should ever stand forever. You should have some policy, some guideline put in place so that everybody knows. It needs to be reviewed quarterly, yearly, every 2 weeks. Something needs to be established to make sure that you're getting the most out of your security setup, right? Every single day, there's new technologies, new skills, new pieces of equipment that people are taking advantage of. And it's our job to make sure that that is all taken care of, right? So on top of that, education, again, we're gonna talk about this a lot, but education, even at advanced levels where people are actually doing real work, every single day, there's somebody who's gonna get a phishing email that's gonna look real, right? You have to train on that. You have to show them this is the problem. You have to show them websites, what they look like. The other day, when I went to DEF CON, I copied a landing page for Google perfectly. Everything was perfect. You cannot tell the difference between what I did and at Google's actual login page. And the entire time I'm sitting there just watching people sign into things.
Oh, goodness.
The whole time we're just sitting there watching. So this is very, very common, right? It's not that difficult to do. I did it in about 15 minutes. So something, education, making sure that there's life cycles so that everybody understands what's new, what's coming, and then making sure that what we put in place is already, is good and is being updated.
As a practical example, if I get an email that says that something's happened at my bank and I have a link, how do you recommend I navigate them?
You report it, you flag it, you don't touch it, report it to the, whatever IT department, or whatever cybersecurity department is available. Every company is different, right? So they all have their own links that you have to send this stuff to. Just don't touch it. If it doesn't look right, doesn't read right, if it doesn't feel right, it's probably
You can
not
also
right.
go to your app,
Yeah,
right? So if you
yeah.
have your own app on your phone, you're like, oh wait, I got this letter on my email, but my app doesn't say anything,
Right.
then it's obviously a phish. But now if you have your email, and then you go to your app and learn, oh, okay, yeah, there
Yeah.
really is some manipulation here,
Yeah.
I think that that's a very valid point. I think the truth is that for many people, they'll see their email and it'll look legit, right? I mean, because very often the URL is only maybe one digit off. But keeping a set of bookmarks for all these standard financial companies that you use instead of the links in your email, using the applications that you know and trust, I think is an effective way to ensure that you don't get caught up in this trap.
Yeah, knowing that, hey, if you see something from your bank, contact your bank. You should be contacting, the
Yeah.
people you want. If they reach out to you, you're like, wait a minute, I didn't request anything. What's going on here? Why are you reaching out to me?
Exactly. And another thing that you can do is look through the header, look at the IP address and the actual email address that it came from, do a reverse search on that and see where it actually came from. A lot of times that's going to be the dead giveaway, that where it came from, what it is, and does it have any actual affiliation, say, with Bank of America, right? Well, you'll know immediately.
I think that there's a lot of value in having this level of education in terms of cyber, and I would recommend that for everybody. But I think that there are also some general practices that most lay people can conduct in order to stay safe. Yeah.
So adding on to that, given that, sorry, Katie, I was supposed to give you the cyber awareness for the blog.
No, go ahead, you're good.
Specifically, the
Okay.
quote that I was going to give is that, given that this is the month of cyber awareness, that we should be practicing more of these tactics, like, I guess, as a company, as a school, as an education, as any sort of business, there should be a spread that this month should have this specific sort of training, that Professor Rodriguez says that you should reverse engineer the email. No one, like, I'm assuming that not everyone in this room knows how to reverse engineer an email and figure out how to do all the specific things.
Show of hands, who knows how to reverse engineer? And all right, I'll be coming to you all when this.
So it'll be an understanding of having some sort of small training for these business and educations to have, hey, if you get said email and it looks like something very important, ask someone. Just ask. Should I, like, ask your IT, ask your boss, ask the person next to you? Because maybe they got the same email. So now it's gonna be a red flag that, hold on, I'm not the only person that got this singular email. Multiple people inside of my office or my business or people that I know that has the same bank has gotten the same email. So now that could, throw up a red flag for you, maybe I shouldn't touch this. Or if it is something that looks very important, obviously talk to someone higher up. Like there's instances around the school where for a reason, everyone, just because I'm a tutor, people ask me, hey, you're cyber, what's this mean? What is this? And I'm like, if you.
It never ends.
So all it takes is, you saw the email, take exactly what you saw in the email, put it in Google, and watch all of the results pop up about if it's real or not.
Yeah.
And that's your answer.
In fact, I was gonna say, oftentimes it'll happen to me, and I don't have every fraudulent email memorized, right? So I'll do very similar, I'll do like a Reddit, maybe with a link, because if you're being exploited, if somebody's sending you a phishing email, you're probably not the first, right? So you can usually conduct a search just to see if what you're seeing is legit or not.
Yeah, it's an important point. If you're joining us online, we're talking cybersecurity, cyber awareness, cyber hygiene. This is an important point, and I want to stick on it and add to it. We know, kind of what bad looks like. You're clicking emails that you don't know, sending off your bank codes. Sometimes it's not even your fault. Your information is leaked, and hackers have an in to reach you and have your information to follow up with. What does good look like? What does success look like? And how can, the folks here and the folks online achieve that success? I'll go to you first.
You got
There you are.
Here's what's interesting. Here's kind of where I'm at. In terms of the cyber landscape.
Yeah.
So, cyber started with this idea of, create an indestructible barrier or defense, right? And we recognize that that's no longer an effective means because, with enough time and effort, somebody's gonna break through that barrier. So we've evolved now to this, this trust, zero trust model in which, any device at any point needs to be verified regardless of where it's at on the network, where it's working through. Here's what I think, and we'll use as an example the recent NPD data breach.
Yeah.
So it was about 10 years ago, OPM data breach occurred. And federal employees, military, had their data exploited, and it was a big deal. It was a very big deal. Just a handful of months ago, NPD had 2.9 billion records breached. B with a billion. We know that a number of those records were duplicates, and some of those records were deceased. But even if we assume that just a third of those records were legitimate, that's still 800 million personal records, social security, addresses, the whole thing. My point here is that I think moving beyond zero trust is an expectation of zero privacy. I think we need to, we were talking earlier about incident response. I think that we are now in a phase where incident response needs to be the standard, where you should expect that your social security number's out there. You should expect that you could be the target of a data breach. And as such, you should have incident response in place in order to freeze, manage your credit, stop any kind of exploitation that could happen in that regards. And that shouldn't be the exception, that should be the norm.
Absolutely. So I think the big, for me to call it a win, it's about establishing a cybersecurity culture wherever you're working. There's no way of saying like this is what's going to work. Every company is different, every industry is different, every geographical location on the planet is different. The types of attacks that are coming in are different. So it's just about establishing that culture so that everybody has the same mindset of I need to fix this, I need to be aware of this, I need to be training on this. And once we get enough people within an organization start thinking that way, with the problems start going down. Most of all of the problems that we're going to be facing is because somebody let something in the door that they weren't supposed to. Whether it be passwords, whether it be that they just let someone literally walk in behind them, which happens all the time, or that they're clicking on links, they're downloading things, bringing things to work that they're not supposed to.
Yeah.
So establishing that culture is really, really where I think we can call it a win. When people are thinking there are problems that I need to be aware of.
Do you think that we can reach that?
I do. I think if we can actually start establishing where, you know, our cybersecurity outreach isn't just, here's an email, here's one, you know, CBT that you click through once a year, right? That's not real training. But if we can establish it where we have it in your face a little bit more, there's posters where you get to see, there's emails going out.
Part of the culture.
Yeah, part of the, you know, there's like if we develop an app for the university, every morning you get a new notification of some new tip that's coming out, some new attack that's coming through. If we start putting the information into the hands of individuals, that's when that culture starts to grow and we really start developing what I would call a successful security posture.
So,
Yeah, Chris, go ahead.
to add on to that, I wanna say just, if you're going to consider it a win, what both professors were talking about, I personally believe that not just having the threat or the culture of people knowing, like these, you're getting these specific little tips and stuff like that, it's the understanding that this is going to happen in cybersecurity. And as technology evolves, so is the technology that the attackers are going to use. So it's the understanding that your data, all the stuff that you have, it's going to eventually get leaked. You're going to have stuff missing. The company is going to get attacked. Anything that your device is going to get attacked, and you may lose some stuff. So it's the understanding of not trying to completely, like, hey, this attack is happening, I'm gonna completely stop this attack. Being realistic about the situation is, I would say a win is to mitigate the attacks. So in
And
that,
respond effectively.
yeah,
Yeah.
so whenever these attacks happen, how fast can you mitigate that attack would be the win compared to, hey, I just got attacked, this is a loss.
Yeah, so preparing for the win, not preparing for, I'm never going to, let me build the infrastructure, so I never will. Coming to you,
So
Doctor.
what does success look like in the business world? Success looks like no fires, no chaos. The cybersecurity dude and Dudette are doing it in the background.
Yeah.
Nobody knows.
I think
What
that
they're
that's,
doing.
that's also a scary place though, if you
But-
think about it. I mean, how long did we go without knowing about the SolarWinds attack before? And I mean, that was massive.
But as a business owner, you don't want those fires every single day because then you start ignoring them. You're like, oh, that cyber thing doesn't exist. Oh, it's not protected. Oh, it's weak. So success as a business owner is my bank account stayed intact. I didn't get data exfiltrated. I didn't have a fire.
To keep my money.
It was a good day, right? Meanwhile, your cyber team behind you are like still on fire, right? Because they were doing all the hard battles. So in real life, success is quiet, right? And having a good day in the business world is a lot of business success.
Yeah, I agree with that point. And the truth of the matter is that your investment in cyber is specifically to ensure that.
Excellent. I'm gonna come to you, Kyle, on this next piece on collaboration. How can, and then I'll come to everyone else, how can we work together? You know, the big piece is, you know, building the infrastructure, doing the training, but also the collaboration is key because, I mean, just like, you know, in network security, you know, you need to have those segments that are connected, but also not. But they need to have the same capability. So how can we all work together to strengthen cybersecurity across the board in different industries?
Definitely, two things that are important are trust and sharing of information. Historically, we wanted to hide our key information, and we're afraid that, you know, the opposition is gonna find it and then use it to target us back. And that's what leaves so many more people vulnerable. Sharing that information is the only way to have everybody be as up to date as possible on what is happening. That knowledge is so key so that you can all protect yourselves. And yes, like they said, the attacks are going to happen, but then you can be more prepared for them and know how to then counter them and protect it for the future. Yeah.
That's the whole intent of
Exactly.
Infomart, right?
Yeah.
Is that open communication.
Yeah.
So the FBI is obviously way above everybody's pay grade, right? Because they're government, you know, entities. But InfraGard National is sponsored by the FBI to increase that communication strand. So we have ic3.gov
Yeah.
for those complaints, because they want to share the information sharing. And having that concept of, you know, hey, that elementary school in Pinal County was hit at 5:05. That elementary school in Maricopa County was hit at 5:06. That elementary school was hit in Coconino County at 5:07. What's the trend? And because they were all connected through the network and communication sharing, they were able to identify that it was the same threat. And they were able to really simplify their response strategies, because they were like, oh, okay, we do A, B, and C, everybody's able to come back up and utilize it. You know, same with the CrowdStrike, outage back earlier, a few weeks ago, that, you know, it started about like 9 o'clock Arizona time, because it was midnight Eastern time. So all the communication centers in Arizona started getting hits at like 9:03 PM. So by the time everybody else woke up, and some people still had the blue screen of death, most of Arizona was back up and running, because they were like, oh, we were able to fix that. We were able to control that. We were able to do that because people shared communication.
Yeah, I would say that that's a powerful trend that we're seeing grow in cybersecurity over the last few years, and I think that that's important. It's a reflection of organizations recognizing that even if they're not the ones that are directly hit by a cyber attack, that they're still impacted. For instance, this CrowdStrike attack. Outage. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna go down the same pathway. Communication is number one when we talk about collaboration across multiple different industries. It's communication. If we can establish that, get it tacked down, now we can start sharing those lessons learned reports. We can start sharing, you know, how different tactics, different methods, how we train each other. It starts spreading everywhere. And again, if we walked into a different industry, let's say like healthcare and, you know, a game studio, right? They're completely different needs, right? So we need to be able to learn from the other industries or the other groups within our industry to start sharing, like, okay, this is what you're going through. Let me start bringing that into our organization so we can make those fixes. So.
Well, because it was reported that 75% of the healthcare entities were attacked in some way, shape, or form since the Change Healthcare organization was attacked earlier this year, right? So therefore, you know, having that knowledge and the FBI to say, hey, we've already done this, here's what we did. Boom. So that 75% of the healthcare industry, it was drastically cut, you know, the response time after the communication with the FBI was used.
Yeah, sectors have been hit hard, from healthcare to education. I mean, you know, look at the article out in Washington where the school, a high school serves, you know, K through 12, had to push back their start date because their systems were infiltrated. And we're seeing that just more and more on these, you know, trends. And so, you know, my next question is, what emerging technology and trends are going to shape the next level of what we do? You know, we're gonna get to AI. I wanna get to AI next. That's the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is AI. So I'm gonna phrase this differently.
Well, I'm actually gonna go back to your comment earlier about how do you wanna make sure that you're designing your software and your games in an appropriate manner. So some of the federal regulations that are coming into play, they're not here yet because things happen slowly.
Yeah.
But they're really looking at security by design and privacy by design. So understanding that you are building these programs from the design, from the initial pen on paper or thought here, it is actually done with security and privacy in mind. And that's where we need to understand that. Although they have privacy and security are two different roles, they have to be integrated to make sure that it's done in an appropriate manner.
In the beginning, as you develop. Love that.
I think it's a good, I know this is kind of like a school pitch thing here now, but I'm just saying, a lot of our security individuals could get that mindset going by partnering with somebody else creating a SIP project, because now we have that mindset right off the bat. Like when they're coming up with like the information they're gonna put in, we're gonna tell them, yeah, that's probably not a smart idea to have them put their social security number in there. So that we can identify that, and then they can understand where the problem is, and then we can start creating things that are actually secure and usable. It's gonna be the big thing, usable and secure.
How come you, Chris, what trends are you seeing?
Trends. It's going off of what Professor Rodriguez said and going to the school thing and communicating with talking to other, students and whatnot about what products that they're using. I personally have struggled with working in my own field of trying to create something new, something interesting, or making a new trend with cybersecurity. So instead of trying to make something new, how I start to help other businesses or different types of projects or whatever other people are working on, understand their portion of security and start to expand with the things that they should need, the things that they should be thinking about. So like in my current production studios, I'm not explaining any of that, but I'm working essentially with a comic book storytelling essentially, and their whole thing is that they're trying to make this into a business. They want to make an actual like TV show, and they want to turn this into something serious. Well, they started asking me, well, how do I not get my show leaked? Because that's the big problem. And like, I guess if you want to say trends, if there's a new show coming out, or there's a new anything coming out, new information in general, new show, music, new movies, all this, that's getting leaked. Like people are showing off like, hey, this company wanted to wait until this specific time period so that they can make this amount of money when they produce this movie, but it got leaked 2 months before it's supposed to, so now they're not getting the progress that they wanted to get, the gross income that they wanted to get. So whenever I joined this team, essentially I'm making the security aspect of their website, making sure like, hey, they're talking to one another, and I'm making sure they're saying the right things to one another whenever they're going to talk to each other in person, or if they're walking around, to be mindful of who they're talking to, what they're saying in public. And I would say if you want to talk about trends, the trend specifically in cybersecurity that's probably the worst is people getting social engineered and not understanding that they are getting social engineered. That the things that we are currently saying to, if I were to talk to you about something in cyber or something about the school, and then there's some random person walking by listening to the conversation, and now we can take that information and run with it and do whatever they want, and now they just got some sort of information about you or something crazy like that. That would be like one of the biggest trends that I see, that people are freely talking, and that goes back to everything that we talked about
Everything
before.
we've said has been recorded on that,
Yeah.
shared on YouTube. Voice AI can actually take our voices and take them out and now socially engineer.
Oh, that's, okay, so I don't wanna talk about that, because that's gonna go into AI.
Well, let's go into it. Let's open up that can. So you can
Okay.
back right up there.
Well, so going into AI, taking an AI class and learning this, one of my projects that I did was I could right now go on YouTube, take every single voice that has been talking. Right now, all of our faces are on this video, all of our voices are on this video. We've talked for at least a minute. I can take that and I can make the most ridiculous videos and post it on the internet about, it's gonna have your exact voice, it's gonna have your face, it's gonna have your facial structure, it's gonna have all your movements, because you haven't been sitting here like this, not moving this whole entire time. So AI is gonna track all those movements of all of us sitting here, and it's gonna make these hand gestures, all the stuff that we did. Dr. Cote is holding a bottle in his hand. I can put a bottle,
Can I have braids?
No, actually, not yet. They haven't moved that far.
To the next upgrade.
Next upgrade, yeah. But I can change that to, you're not drinking water in your hand, you'd be drinking something else in your hand. Or I can have all types of different things. AI is so insane, and it's the understanding that there's not just one AI that can do this. There's multiple AIs that can do the specific thing that you want your AI to do. And it's kind of scary about what AI can do, and it's hard as in cybersecurity and having a cyber awareness. Is this true or not? That you're watching this TikTok and your favorite TikToker or whatever is actually AI this whole time. It's not a real person.
Yeah.
Or whatever you see on the internet, it's probably not real at this point, and it's hard for people to believe if this is real or not because of how good AI is. And you're thinking, this is AI in 2024, what it's gonna look like in the future.
It is scary.
We're still working on the hands. though.
Yeah. No, my uncle called me just a few weeks ago saying, when he was learning about all of this and about how these deepfake videos can be made so realistically and convincingly, he was asking, he was genuinely, how do I know? What do I do? How would I know if I'm being duped or not, if I'm being like socially engineered? And I just, aside from, well, you can kind of tell because I have an eye for it and I can see where things are glitching. Eventually, that's not going to be there. We're not going to have that eye. And you're right, I don't have an answer for you, man. You know, we got to find that solution. And so that, you know, like it is scaring people, the public.
Yeah, so it's evolving. Like AI has, put the Super Mario boost on hackers now. It has really given us an avenue to prompt engineer quicker, to do a lot of different things quicker, but it also has equipped hackers to do things in even a more lazy way. I can hack easier now. So, what do we do to combat these evolving technologies where, correct, it's distorting the line between reality, and non. And so, Dara, I'll come to you. What do we do?
Thanks, thanks.
What do we do?
Run and hide. No,
That's what here we go.
just stay here, take out the cameras, take out the cell phone. No, just kidding. Realistically, being inquisitive, right?
Yeah.
Question.
Yep.
Make sure you're really identifying, is this real? Are you asking questions? We're gonna take your question in just a couple minutes, because you've got a good one, I'm sure. But I wanna let these guys chat first, and then we'll come back to you. But realistically, is understanding that there is the scary out there, and question. Zero trust. Trust nothing and verify, right? Because you wanna make sure that you really are understanding what's being approached and what's being presented.
Absolutely, that's one of the first things they teach us in the military, stress but verify. Make sure that you know who you're talking. If somebody gives you a call, look at the phone number. Does it look like it's from somewhere you've ever gotten a phone call from? If they say they're from headquarters, say, I will call headquarters back then. Like, find other ways. The whole social engineering aspect is a big deal. We just watched the whole presentation on that a couple weeks ago. They dry called 30-something individuals from a company. One person let them all the way through. So they all the way to remote desktop. So there's a lot. So just verify everything. That's basically the only way we can do any of this. If somebody writes you a paper, email, or something, look at it. Verify who it came from. If somebody's sending you links to things, verify the link. Google it before you actually put it in. Like, there's a lot of things that you can do to try to get these issues in order. Again, AI is going to be a continually growing field. It's going to continue to just keep knocking down walls over and over and over again. And the only thing y'all can do up to this point is just try to be aware of everything that's going on around you. Verify that it's real. Verify that, whatever you're trying to do is exactly what you're actually trying to do. I mean, it's just going to keep growing from here, so.
That sounds smart. To highlight, I think we've identified the speed, ease, and sophistication that AI allows us to exploit, defend, and for good news, right? So attackers are using AI, cybersecurity is using AI too.
Yeah.
So we're leveling the playing field. It's not just like a one-sided game here. But the point is that I think, as Professor Rodriguez highlighted, being aware is what will make the difference personally, professionally, and as an organization.
Excellent. Really, really good note. And it brings the stroke of ethics, which is a big topic, especially in cybersecurity. Are we ethically sound? Are we doing that? Of course, Chris has all the tools to do everything that he said, but his ethical moral compass will keep him grounded. But there's not others who have that. And so, these implications as far as ethics, how do we, one, instill it, and then how do we, really deep dive and curtail when you have these cyber attacks that are happening time after time after time, and you kind of say, let's be ethical, and it's like, well, they're not. How do we combat an industry which is kind of, it can be a little bit an antithesis of doing the right thing? How do we steer towards that ethic piece? I'll come to you, Dara.
Well, I'm actually gonna rephrase that just a bit. So insider threat is a critical piece of knowledge. KnowBe4 is an organization that they actually teach phishing training, education, cybersecurity awareness training, right? KnowBe4 hired an insider threat, unbeknownst to them. They actually hired somebody from North Korea into their ecosystem, and through the hiring process, this person looked, sounded, acted like a U.S. citizen, got their laptop, started immediately doing malicious activities. Because the laptop was clean and protected, KnowBe4 was not damaged or infiltrated by any means, because their IT department and their security department immediately saw what was happening, cut it down, locked down the laptop, and they found out that the person was from North Korea, was intended to do insider threat activity and exfiltrate data. And it came to the fact that he did nothing secret or scary. He was doing his job interview the whole time. And he got hired and he filled out the paperwork. Now where it became sneaky and manipulative was when he used somebody else's social security number to get a job. He used somebody else's address to get the laptop. He used somebody else's information. So that's where the insider threat can really be tricked and confused. So where you're coming from now, your question and your answer is where they've learned from their lessons, right? So do they do automatic hires without any, visualizations anymore? Nope, they've changed their parameters, right? So you, just like any incident response practice, you find out how you messed up, you change it, and you run it again. Change it, and you run it again, right? And so you learn from your mistakes, and luckily in college you have that opportunity to fall forward, you fall fast, because that makes you a better person. And KnowBe4 is a better organization because of what happened. CrowdStrike, better organization because of what happened. They learned from their lesson. And that's what we have to do. We have to learn from our lessons and make those corrections.
Very good point. Professor?
Was it me? Okay, restate the question. You went in a different direction.
I was gonna ask if that question was for me.
Well, the question in general is essentially what we've been talking about the whole time. Mitigation, communication, talking to people. So if that company learned from what they did before, they mitigated. They learn how to mitigate that problem so it doesn't happen again. They also communicate that problem to other people so that they know not to let this happen again. So that not only this company doesn't allow that sort of incident to happen again, but everywhere in whatever district, country, that sort of business empire knows not to let this specific attack to happen again. And we have those resources. We just don't give those resources out. Like it's kind of like gatekeeping. It's like gatekeeping. We know where to look at these resources, but the normal eye doesn't know where these resources are. I think the better way to put this is there needs to be an easier, you said earlier, changing the way that we talk in sort of manner of technology.
Yeah, technical, not technical.
Yeah. So we need to change that manner and know our audience whenever we're talking to people, because in the cyber aspect, hey, cool, if I'm IT, I'm talking to other IT people who know what we're talking about. But if I go and tell someone in sales, hey, you need to watch this, they're gonna look at you and be like, okay, and it's gonna happen, and they're gonna hire some dude from Korea.
Yeah, and I'm from Kentucky, and so, we talk about, fishing, and if I spoke to anyone in my hometown, just to be quite honest, we would go down to the lake and they would refer to that. And so it's those terms, those technical and non-technicals that we have to bridge so that everyone's on the same page, because I think that's the biggest piece, you encode that message, but decoding it back is that biggest piece. And I want to say smooth for time, we're sort of towards the end here, and we'll come to you all for questions. So if you have any, you'll raise your hand. But I want to talk to you, you two. Obviously we're here at UAT. The talk is about education and how you can maintain that education, be educated in topics. What have you learned so far, and how has UAT prepared you in your transit towards industry, and preparing you for it?
Yeah, I would say that you can, sit and study in a classroom all day about all of these subjects and attacks, but I'd say practical application of it is by far the best way to learn. One example of that, I'm just a few weeks now into the program here, and Dr. B's invited me to join our Cyber Ninjas team, which is an active competition team.
No big deal.
But exactly, no, jumping in and trying active competitions, trying capture the flag games, has taught me so much more than just sitting down and understanding from the book. So they're getting us active and having us participate, and that's by far the best way to learn.
For me specifically, I'm going to highlight the two professors here. And just like you said, there's cool. You go into a classroom and your standard college or whatever, and you're sitting down, you get this lecture, and they're just talking. This is the line, this is the PowerPoint. They're talking about this, blah blah blah. Whenever you would go at UAT and you go to these professors' classes, yeah, there's the PowerPoint. Yeah, there's whatever they can talk about, any of the different things. But good percentage of the time we go into class and they ask you, what, if we have a topic, what do you know about the topic? And then we specifically dive into that. And now it turns into what UAT asks is for, we have discussion questions and we have all these different things. But in general, we go to class and these two professors, we do all that in class. We have these discussions as a whole. It's not like I'm just going to talk to one person and this person and we have a conversation back and forth. It's the whole class that's engaged in this singular topic. And now everyone is having this strong understanding of how to move forward in certain subjects. Everyone's learning. It doesn't matter, like you just got recently invited into the cyber club. It doesn't matter if you're entry level or if you're senior level. I'm sure there's things that Dr. Picote learns on the fly as we're talking about certain topics and we're Googling things like it as a group of people about the topic that we're talking about that day. So in my perspective, we're not just learning something off of a slide that someone put together for some information. We're learning in real time information together as a whole that's going to prepare us for situations in the future, like current situation. What happened today? What, like that would be the topic. Like instead of having, PowerPoints from 10 years ago or 5 years ago, a week ago or something like that, even a day ago, it is the way that technology is moving, cybersecurity is moving. There's a new attack that's happening every day, every second, and that's what we're talking about in class, and that's what we're learning to progress ourselves with current events about not trying to stick at one specific thing. We're not trying to learn what this definition means right now. We need to know and understand why this is important and how it's going to change for the future, and why we need to know how to continue to roll with the technology and how things are evolving instead of just looking at just a paper and answering questions.
Well said, you better preach. I love that. Well, excellent. So we went through our topics today. We want to pass it back out to you all. Raise your hand if you have any questions for our panelists.
That person in the white shirt had the first
Oh.
question.
We'll start with
Promise.
So, this is going back to the topic with AI and deepfakes. So right now, as everyone knows, they're not as advanced as they are. Like, you can still detect if something is fake if you look close enough. But whenever it becomes more advanced, like, what solutions could you guys see from like a cybersecurity perspective of being able to detect if something is real or fake or like a deepfake? If that makes sense.
Absolutely, we're gonna start using more forensics work to start establishing what it is and how it was made. One of the big areas that they do is they do stamp everything that it creates. It stamps it inside of the file signature line so that we can identify what it is and where it was made. The same thing with Adobe, a lot of those other products, they stamp it inside like your hexadecimal information and your text just so that you can identify that it was this platform, it was this that did it, this is the software that needs to be run for that program to run, right? So that would be the next thing we'd start doing, is developing, that forensics mind to start looking into these videos, these songs, whatever it is that you're looking for. That's the next step, is establishing it with everybody.
Well said. You have a question behind you?
Yeah, I just wanted to, is there anything new or upcoming in the world of cyber that you guys are excited about to be unveiled and potentially implement in your day-to-day?
Have we talked about the cyber ninjas yet?
Open source AI threat detection. So right now, like one of the big not open source, one of the big threat detections that a lot of people use. I'm not sure if you want to say certain things because of UAT, but there is a specific company named. Either way, there's specific companies that has AI threat detection. And basically, this threat detection is for large-scale companies, etc. that we cannot afford as a person. You cannot afford this as a person. So what we're looking forward to is in the future that someday on GitHub, there's going to be a person that's going to put open source AI threat detection that you can throw on your computer and your cell phone. And it's going to make things a whole lot easier for the individual.
What's that? Yeah, we'll go to you.
How do you think? Oh, okay. How do you think regulations should be treated for gadgets like the Flipper Zero or Hacker F? Do you think they should be restricted or?
It's not going to get restricted because of the wording that people use.
Oh yeah.
It's training equipment, it's not considered hacking equipment. So, the way that the marketing is set up is so that we are you selling it so that you can train your own departments or your own networks or learn to use these products so that you know what to do in the event. Is that what they're being used? No, clearly that's not what they're being used for, but,
Not exclusively what they're being used for.
yeah. So, is there a way to stop it? I don't believe so. They would have to write some new policy to get it through.
I think it's an interesting question. In fact, there is a whole school of thought that suggests that universities and training programs shouldn't teach exploitation and hacking. Because when you do, you're essentially putting those tools and skills in people's hands that could potentially use it for malicious purposes. And would we argue that that's possible? Surely, absolutely possible. But I also think it's possible, practical, and my hope is that by educating those that would defend us against attackers with those skills and tools and knowledge, that they're better equipped to be able to do so. And to the point, I think that applies to the Flipper and other tools designed to teach exploitation.
And reverse engineer, right?
Yeah.
So if
Right.
you're given the end, you can reverse it back to the beginning, and you would need to learn that.
Cool. Got some questions in the middle. We'll come to you.
So when I grew up, it was a different time for computers. My whole life I had a computer or phone, and with that, there was regulations just being in place. Like the internet was finally out of the wild age, being tamed. And right now with future generations, it's AI. It's a whole new game. And I guess my question is, how do you explain to younger generations how dangerous AI is or can be? And how do you teach parents what to do to protect their child from that?
Okay, I'm sorry, I keep jumping in, I'm sorry. The only way that, what we do is we use history as kind of like our line in the sand, right? So what was the first thing before them? It was Google. Google was the big problem. Google was the thing that was gonna ruin all of our lives. Nobody's ever gonna learn anything anymore. So we have that model set in place, and we can learn from that and say, we've gone through something similar, right? There is technology that's gonna give us answers a lot faster. It's gonna think faster than us. And we can use that to start progressing forward and coming up with what are we gonna do next. Like with Google itself, we started coming up with safe searching, parental controls. We started coming up with the way that we log that information that goes passing back and forth through different networks. There's a lot of things that we started to do. So that's what we're gonna do for AI now. We're gonna start finding the new pathway there because it's gonna happen again. Once this version of AI is done, there's gonna be a better one. And then once AI is done, there's gonna be a robot that does it for you. So there's just an endless thing. So we just keep using history as a model to say, okay, this is what we did at this point. Let's find a new pathway forward.
I would like to say that was a very insightful question.
I know.
And an insightful answer. I was just gonna say, watch the Terminator. It's funny when we talk about AI. I usually use this concept. I say, we're kind of in that phase like a calculator. I don't know if that's transparent for anybody who's under 30. My mom would
It's
tell
this
me.
old machine that we used to have, for those of you that.
It's on your phone.
But now it's on your phone.
So my mom grew up in this time when calculators were just starting to be commonplace for personal use, and how it was incredibly restrictive. Like you weren't allowed to use a calculator until like you were outside of the classroom. And now I think it's pretty common, right? I mean, you're almost in the wrong if you don't have a TI-86 in high school.
Well, when I taught sixth grade a billion years ago, my slogan was, you're not gonna have a calculator in your pocket, you need to know how to do 3 times 6 is 18. Sure enough, we all have calculators in our pocket, so,
Yeah. I think AI is going through this same sort of evolution. And I think that we'll probably get to the same end state where, you know, AI probably levels out. We'll see, you know, left and right boundaries that make sense, just like the other tools like Google and Apple.
So kind of just plateauing, because right now it's just, it keeps
Yeah.
going.
To answer in a deeper and a faster way, they're implementing AI. Well, to take what they both said and put into one thing, they're implementing AI into our devices already. That's going to do specifically what Aaron Rodriguez was talking about, so that, you know, Google was the Wild West at one point, and then they started implementing specific things. You can't search this, or this is the privacy, parental controls, and all that. So AI is now being put inside of these cell phones. So now you, whenever you had a cell phone at the age of 13, won't be able to use AI to go and find something, because the AI in your phone is going to let your parents and your teachers and all of your professors and everybody know that you just tried to look up something on your phone using AI, that whatever. So that there's going to be AI already implemented inside of your devices, your computer, your phone, all of that you cannot touch. I mean, you probably could if you were smart enough, but you probably won't be able
He's
to.
like challenging.
Like, wait a minute, you probably won't be able to get into the AI implemented into your iPhone or your Samsung. That's going to stop you from using AI, just like Google started stopping people from using Google in, you know, ways that they probably shouldn't have, and it sent alerts to other people. Well, that's what your phone and your laptop is going to start doing in the future. It's probably in your phone right now and you have no idea.
Chris, I don't hate that answer, but it was definitely longer than ours. We'll come to you.
Earlier, you guys were mentioning how, when discussing what success looks like, you were saying that you should expect that your data has been breached and expect zero privacy, and trust no one. And in that case, what are you defending against?
I'm glad you circled back on that, Boone. I owe you a better answer. So we were discussing success, right? And I was leading into the idea that I think we brought up earlier in regards to incident response. And oftentimes we talk about incident response in this enterprise level sort of concept, you know, for organizations. But I think if we made it simpler, and we just talked about it on a more personal level, you and everybody in here probably knows about this idea of saving for 3 to 6 months of income, right? Why do we do that? Emergencies, right? And I think that's the same should be true for our cyber hygiene, for our data, for our privacy, right? Having those same sort of principles apply to the privacy and the data that we have, just as we would to our bank accounts. You want more.
He wants more of an answer. He's like, you kind of want a little bit more.
Okay.
Well, I think you also want to protect your own entity, right? Because you can work for many other organizations, right, and protect their entity, but earlier this summer, I apparently opened a Chase credit card and got a $20,000 limit, and
Congratulations on that.
Big deal.
it was sent to my house, and I opened up the email, I was like, no, I didn't.
Was this actually sent to your house? I'm trying to follow.
Oh, it really was, right?
Okay.
So but I got the email saying, hey, your FedEx package is coming with your new black, platinum, whatever card. And I'm like, what is this, right? And I immediately recognized it as a red flag. So I called Chase and they're like, oh, well, let's ask a couple of your questions and get some answers, right? To form a better picture, to do some forensic investigating. And it turned out that because my social security number is in the dark web from a data breach of who knows what, the person had my social security number, they had my address, they had the street that I lived on, so they were able to answer as a child, right? So they were able to answer one of the privacy questions, and they were able to get this credit card. The weird thing that Chase didn't understand was, why did they send it to my house? And so what we came up is they had actually done some online transactions. And so because they sent it to my house, no red flags went off. And they were able to buy their stuff
Because you usually get a digital
You get
card,
a virtual
right?
card.
Yeah.
Mm.
And so, here, I have all my agents I have all my ducks in a row, but because of a data leak, that I couldn't control, I had to be able to fix it, right? So now my credit is frozen. Nobody can get a credit card unless I authorize it. And so it's truly understanding and, that yes, it is out there in the wild dark web, right? It's going to be used and manipulated, but if we have our parameters in place and our protective agents in place, we can protect our own identity from worse. And so the good news of that story was Chase was really good about it, closed the card down, didn't charge me, and a lesson learned. Like, I now have everything frozen.
Yeah.
And
Frozen until
right,
And
exactly.
I want to highlight on my point and what Dara's saying, that doesn't mean I'm just gonna turn off all my firewalls and, let bad guys take advantage of me because I expect that my data's out there. No. I'm saying maintain that healthy cyber hygiene by having effective firewalls, by making sure that your passwords are not default, like all the things that we know to be good and true, but also take those additional security standards, like understanding what's on your credit report and having the steps and know how to reach out to the credit bureau and freeze your credit if necessary. Keeping it on. So you talked about what was it? On a regular basis, reviewing stuff. What was the term you used?
Life cycle?
Life cycle. Reviewing your credit should be on one of your personal life cycles.
It should, 100% it should. Yeah. Got time for a few more questions? I will come to you in the back.
I really was just asking, what is the cybersecurity industry, how are they responding to the high-level threats, like government actors? Like, I'm sure you've heard of Pegasus software, you're doing stuff like that. The latest round of Spectre and Meltdown, even 12th gen Intel are vulnerable, and when we're talking about it needs to be the hardware is the problem, right? So, what are companies doing to stop these, basically people walking right in the front door, and even like FireEye or CrowdStrike, the guys who were supposed to be the protectors, having their stuff stolen right from them, and now an entire third-party market selling their tools, right, like on the dark web. So who's really to protect people from the biggest threats?
I got you. So to kind of address it, at the lowest level, again, it's gonna start off with planning. There's no one fix that we're gonna be like, we can stop everybody on the planet. It's not gonna happen. But what we do is we plan to a point so that we can have our backups, we can have everything shut off in an instant if we need to. We have all of those processes put in place. Again, so once one of these attacks go on, then we start the communication process, where we start finding out who did they go after, what systems did they target, what firmwares were you running, what applications do you have on your system that they might be trying to exploit. And then we start talking about policy level, we start talking about access controls. What are you doing that this one thing bypassed it? So we can try to develop those new controls and those new things to do. Again, there's always gonna be something new. There's always something new.
I like this answer on a very individual and organization basis. Like, incident response should be in your back pocket. To answer your question specifically in regards to what are big organizations and the federal government doing, my response to you would be not enough. And
But they're better than they were.
no, don't disagree. And to the purpose of your question, I think we could then say, okay, well, if that's true, what can I do? And I think that there needs to be more accountability. And we're seeing that in our peers in the EU in regards to the GDPR and holding organizations accountable for managing privacy and data. And I think that there needs to be more of that here in the US. And I think coalitions that work to bring organizations together in order to promote InfoSec is important. But I also think that needs to circle back to rules, regulations in regards to how businesses operate here in the US.
And the White House is actually creating those executive orders. Starting last March of 2024, the executive order did go out to really start building more of those coalitions and understanding where they're at. this morning it was released that, building on your GDPR response, Ireland received, $14 million of fines, fees, and regulations for privacy that was leaked by those larger organizations. So they're taking that money and building their stronger infrastructure within their country to really emphasize the fact that that company was punished, they paid the fine, the country's now better for it, and that's where they're gonna learn from it.
I have one thing to say about the AI thing with what Chris said. So basically a bigger and better version of Siri. It's a good way to say that about AI, working with AI. Yeah. And my question was, I heard cybersecurity insurance for companies. Do they still offer it? Not still. Do they offer it for individuals? And if so, who would you recommend?
Good question.
So yeah, actually cyber insurance for individuals is much more predominant than it was even 12 months ago. And the underlying feature for that is, of course, protecting your PHI, your health information, your personal information, your II, your identifiable information, your financial information, but also implementing bullying and online bullying. And that's where individual insurance comes into play. Only one or two of the larger capabilities are utilizing that personal insurance yet now. But I think by the end of 2025, a lot of the other insurance companies will jump on.
So you're saying there isn't a one you would recommend at this time? I'm just curious.
There's only one or two to choose from right now. And I believe the Hartford is one of them. So I don't know who's better because there's such few out there.
Okay. Thank you.
One last question there.
So I actually have two questions. I can only ask one.
Hey, go ahead.
I got people.
Yeah.
So the first one, what do you guys think like how AI has affected like 0-day vulnerabilities with companies?
Yeah. So I can introduce. So I mean, the truth of the matter is that we don't. To some level, AI has definitely influenced the ability to be able to find 0-day exploits. I think that we can just put on the face of it. As we indicated earlier, AI has increased the speed, ease, and sophistication of exploitation. So 0-day exploits definitely falls into that domain. Add to that.
I would say yeah, but also you still have to take an aspect of what AI can and cannot do legally, and that. But it obviously, if you wanted to start creating scripts and you all these 0 days, and you put the time and effort it's going to take you, obviously, you're putting this into AI, etc. You also have to understand that there's other people that can see the same thing that you're inputting in AI, so they can, actively or defensively look for things that people are putting in AI that can stop this as well. But I mean, it ultimately goes to how good are these attackers when they're looking at how good are these attackers, and specifically like in the AI class that I took recently, literally at the school you can take artificial intelligence, which teaches you how to use AI more efficiently. So how efficient are these? Well, I guess yeah.
If we baseline, like what's a 0-day exploit? Let's start there. Is it a 0-day exploit? Is any exploit that it isn't publicly known, the manufacturer isn't aware of it, and has a vulnerability, right? So it doesn't need to be some novel, super sophisticated exploitation for it to be a 0-day. I mean, you could take a known exploit on one piece of software, apply it to some other software, and that's essentially a 0-day. Right, so in that sense, I think AI absolutely could help in terms of developing these 0-day exploits. And it's incumbent upon us as researchers and security professionals to ensure that we're working that same problem set to solve that problem before it becomes an exploit in the wild.
And I'm gonna say one of the last things for that, just out of curiosity and just trying to test things out, I have been taking different scripts and different things that people have written and thrown it in there just to see, like, can you explain any vulnerabilities that are currently present here that you can find? And it does give you a list of things. It's like, okay, these variables are aligned incorrectly, or
for sure.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that it can pick up for you, and then so it's not only bad. That's kind of my point. It's not only bad. It can help us like identify our own problems as well. So.
Yeah, in fact, I was working in ChatGPT just the other day, and the feedback that I was getting was actually pretty intuitive. Like, not just on the surface, like, try these 5 simple things. Like, I mean, it was really thinking through, like, and without bringing up specifics, applying other concepts and ideas that clearly it was getting from something else to the problem set at hand.
And your last question?
So what do you think lawmakers should do to help with like data privacy and data leaks?
Everything.
Yeah, I don't know what, here's my thought on that. We can talk about it up and down, and we can say that this is illegal. It doesn't mean people are gonna stop doing it. It's kind of the problem. That's why we have these departments, that's why we have jobs. It's because there's always somebody that's like, that line, I'm gonna see if I can go past that line and see what's on the other side of it, right? And that's kind of where we're stuck at. It would be great if we could like, find a way to make the punishment severe enough where somebody would be like, yeah, I'm gonna second take that. That's probably the only thing that would really stop people from doing it.
I think in terms of threat actors, that's probably a valid point. I think in terms of data privacy, our government owes it to us to set high bar in terms of regulations and security so that organizations are held accountable. So that organizations first understand what the expectations are, and then when they fail to meet those expectations, are held accountable.
Because right now, we're aiming toward 50 separate states of the US for privacy regulations. We need a uniform United States regulation to create those boundaries.
So, I mean, imagine if you will, the GDPR is a policy that affects the entire European Union. We're talking not just different states, I mean, we're talking countries. But here in the US, we've got very few really
Right now, it's 23.
effective privacy regulations, and even those that exist aren't nationwide.
And they vary drastically.
Very,
Right.
very.
A lot of good content here. Well, we are at time right now. I want to thank our amazing panelists for their insight. I want to thank you all for sticking with us and going through. And I want to thank everybody online on our YouTube Live. We thank you so much, and we hope you learned today. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and the goal is to keep and maintain your cyber hygiene. So thanks, folks. We should do a couple more.
I was like,
We should do a couple more of these.